Okay guys, I've been having a little bit of a problem trying to figure out where to put the camera to get the best shots of this because everything is so small. But here's what's happened. I'm still waiting on parts for my Bumblebee, but I got back on the New Jersey, done a little bit of work on it, but then I realized I was screwing up. I literally had forgotten almost totally about the etch brass. I've got plenty of it. I looked at the parts that I was having problems with that I just thought were ugly, that were injected plastic, and I found that they're supposed to be taken off. I'll show you that just a little bit. But first part I did, you know, that snaggle-tooth, ugly looking structure that, hang on a minute, that rather ugly structure, well, let's try to get this focused. There you go. That was right here and had that little piece of plastic over the top of it. It was awful. Well, I found out I was supposed to take all this off. So I've done that on the front. I haven't taken these off the side yet, but I wanted to show you. I went to one of these ladies' beauty supply stores. As I'm sure many of you have heard, that's where you can get these nail files. Well, this is a 4-part nail file, and it's become my favorite tool of choice. This blue part right here, I don't know if it's going to show up very well, but this is simply for filing your nails. Then you go to this second stage, which is for removing ridges. Then you go to the back side and you've got this white one for smooth surfaces and the gray one literally for what it calls super shine, but it's a real fine, almost the consistency of printer paper. Well, let's go back to my part, and if you will look again on this front piece, this had these nubs just like the side does. So I used the blue, took those down, but it scratched the plastic. So I went to the ridge remover part, and that took the scratches off the plastic. Then I went over to the smoothing part, smooth surface, and it really started to smooth it down. And when I took it to the super shine, it now looks as though there never was anything on it. So this is now my new favorite tool in the model shop, and I'm going to use it to remove these other surfaces. So let me start with the blue part, and I'll do it right here, even though I'm sure you all know how to sand styrene, but it'll just take a second. It really goes fairly quickly with this file, and I'll show you what it looks like when the main nubs are gone. And there you have it. So those main nubs that were on there, like this side, they're already gone. Now I'm going to switch to this pink, remove the ridges. That will basically take away all of what's left of any kind of sanding marks. And I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the shine. That if you go across it, like right now, and this is the way it usually is with an injected piece, at least the old injected pieces. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that very well, but there's a little bit of a dark spot in the middle. Well, that's the shine. I'll see if I can hold this all steady enough, because I'm working backwards here. Right here there's a dark spot. Well, that's the original injected surface. I want to get rid of that, because then once that's gone, this surface is perfectly smooth and flat. And that's what I'm heading for. I want a flat surface, because it shouldn't be hollow, concave, convex, or any other shape. And there you go. That's as close as I want to get it. Now let's turn it over and go to the smoothing file. And this one, there's very little resistance when you get over on this side, because it's not really removing a lot of material. It's just taking off very, very little, as a matter of fact. And there you go. It's beginning to get the tiniest bit of sheen on it. So now I'll just go over to the super shine part. And you don't even have to do that if you don't want to. And I'm just going to hit it a few times. And there we go. As you can see, in just that length of time, it has removed all signs of that anything was ever there. And it's also flattened that surface. Now I'm going to go across the top of this, because I cut off those upper pieces, because I've got all the windows that are going to go in are going to be on a piece of etch brass that will fold around this level. And then there is a much nicer etched brass roof on this that I'll cut off and put on later. Right now, off camera, I'm going to take these ridges off this other side. Okay, just as quickly as the last time I was able to get rid of these. So now there's no sign that there was ever any of those just pitiful looking window frames on this. Okay, so let's take a look now at what I'm going to replace it with. If you look right here on my EB, this, I'll go from the back side. These are the window frames. They will bend in two places. This is the roof. It will bend in three places, because there's also a piece right down here that's a tab that folds under and is where part of the glue goes. These other window frames, they're going to go on what were the bridge frame, the bridge windows. Now, what was on there was injected window frames, and I got a decal sheet. Let me go get the decal sheet, because you got to see this to believe it. Here you go. If you look carefully, these little tiny 1 millimeter or less squares were supposed to be the decals that you put in between each one of the windowsills, I guess we call them. But you have to cut these out individually, and individually put the decals on to black out the windows. This is why I was really having a lot of trouble with the way this was set up in the original model. So when they added the EB, they added all of these open window frames, and here they are. These open window frames right here, you just fold them around the bridge, glue it on, and you don't have to put any decals on it. It really looks a lot better. And if somebody wanted to light the interior of this ship, this makes it totally possible. So this is something that I've started paying more attention to. As you could see a minute ago, I had to put my hand behind a small piece to get it to focus, because the automatic focus sees too much detail behind it. So I was in my craft store yesterday, and I bought one of these Elmer's, or I bought two of them actually, these Elmer's trifold backgrounds that are used by teachers to put on performances. This is one of them. They'll put up displays. They use them in science stuff, you know, that they put on. I put two of these together. I hung my instructions up here with some of those clips I bought, and I've got my etched brass instructions over here. They show what goes where and how it goes on, etc. Okay, now if you'll take a look right here, you'll see the etched brass for the bridge. You can see where the window frames are put in over here. Whoops. This one right here is what I'm working on now. I've already taken off the pieces that need to come off, and I will fold and glue the window frames and the roof on, plus add these extra pieces around here. Now here's the real problem with this kit. Let me turn everything around. Let me get my fat fingers out of the way and use this little pointer. Right here you'll see some pink, and you'll see some pink right here. If it's in pink, it has to be cut off of the model. They even show you how to cut it off. They show you what etched brass by number to put back in. But if you're not looking for this, when you start working on these stacks, there won't be anything on the instructions to tell you to come over here and check this out. Over here, let's go back to the main part of the bridge. This is what came on this model. That had to be cut off. Well, I use a little jeweler's saw. I recommend everybody that's going to work on styrene and do some cutting and chopping, get one of those jeweler's saws. A little #1 blade will make a cut that's so thin you can hardly see it, and it took all of this pink part off, all the windows that were there, in less than a minute. And then I just filed it smooth and did just the process I just did with that other piece right here. So then I'll go in and I'll put in these etched brass pieces here. That will make, well, and then there's more pieces that go on that, and then there's a little cover that goes over the windows. So this really becomes a fairly decent model. Now you can see what the stack here looks like. Hang on a minute. Am I looking at it? Oh yeah, you can see what the stack here looks like with the etched brass on it. There's some etched steel on it too, so there's like 3 or 4 pieces, a bunch of pieces that go around here. So all of the railing is replaced, and I'm going to replace all the railing. I'm not going to use a railing that came in the styrene form, because none of it looks very convincing, but there's a lot of little details here. Here's a set of stairs that come out of a doorway. I think I've got some doorways that will go over what's already on the model. So this is not just going to be my work area, but this is a place where, for instance, if I want to zoom in on what I've done so far on the bridge, I've just been taking stuff off. I've not been putting any of the etched brass on yet. So you can see that I have removed those window frames all the way around the bridge, and removing them and sanding this surface smooth to accept the new etched brass, it took 2 minutes. I mean, it really works well, especially if you use a little jeweler's knife, a jeweler's saw. That takes it off very quickly. And just for kicks and giggles, guys, let me show you what that looks like. Okay, that's the jeweler's saw. I just put it in the vise so that it would be held while I put the camera on it. Now I'm going to zoom in as close as I can and see at what point I don't know if you'll ever be able to see that blade properly. But you can see how small it is, and I had to use a magnifying glass to make sure I got it in with the teeth in the correct orientation. But you won't be able to see the teeth on this video. Anyway, it makes a very fine line, and it is sharp. So it's a little bit different than a coping saw. Works a little different than a coping saw, but it's basically the same principle. Okay. Now, this black background, I keep putting my hand behind things to get it to focus well. By putting this black background on, I can zoom way in and it will focus because there's nothing in the background. Now, I do have a limit on the camera. There's nothing in the background to confuse the focus, so I'll be able to get some better close-ups. And there's still going to be a lot of sanding on here. So you can see that it'll help having the background less confusing for the camera. And I'll be able to get on now with my work and maybe get some better videos for you guys.